This is an aerial view of the city of Cairo. It has within itself over 22 million inhabitants, more than the combined population of Sweden, Norway and Denmark. I dare you to name a single important person that came from this place, one innovation, one scientific discovery, just one cultural contribution made by any of the 22 million people living there. And we're not talking ancient Egypt. That's right, you can't. And neither can you for Dhaka, Karachi, Mumbai, Manila or Lima. Despite these cities combined having a population higher than Germany, they have failed to produce another Gutenberg, Planck or Benz. These cities don't manufacture inventors, they don't manufacture progress, they don't manufacture culture, they don't manufacture innovation, they just endlessly produce humans and waste. These megacities are human existence reduced to the most basic level, subsistence. No creation, no innovation, just a biomass breathing, consuming and excreting waste. There is nothing valuable in these cities apart from the dirt cheap supply of labor. These cities are just meat aggregates. They have no value to the world. If any one of them were to be wiped off the face of the earth someday, nobody would notice that 20 million people were just evaporated into nothing, apart from the corporations that have outsourced their production to there. Suffocating is one word to describe it. Not thousands, not millions, but tens of millions of humans living in what essentially is one big anthill. Thousands of ambitions, personalities just reduced to a living, breathing biomass. The noise, the endless labor, making knockoff Jordans for a living in 14-hour shifts. Entire millions live like that from birth till they end up dying in some freakish, lively work accident and are dumped in some mass grave. But hey, at least the cities are extremely walkable. People living in these cities have essentially evolved to live like insects. They are effectively slaves, they drink dirty water, they eat raw food, they breathe polluted air, they live in dirty, extremely crammed holes. They are insects. If you say you detest the third world, you're gonna be called a xenophobe, implying that you are scared of nothing in particular but anything foreign and different from your own culture. There's nothing more inaccurate than calling me a xenophobe, because it's not some nondescript broad concept of aliens or foreigners that scares me. No, what scares me is perfectly described and contained within this single image. It's not some boneheaded fear of everything foreign, it's a refined and informed fear of how these people just turn every piece of land into cities that look like this. Auchmerophobia is the right word. It's derived from the ancient Greek word auchmeros, which means a filthy, squalid, cramped place. It's a fear of a dirty, polluted, disorderly third world. Now I know making up phobias is gay, as almost none of them are actual irrational fears, as that's what a phobia is. As in, for example, claustrophobia is extremely natural, as I don't think any person enjoys tight spaces. No sane person would voluntarily live in a place that looks like this if they had a choice. But that's the thing, people living there don't have a choice. You know what is a choice on the other hand? Letting millions of third worlders into the West. And nonetheless, Auchmerophobia is a precise feeling of dread upon seeing the squalor, the claustrophobic landscapes and the poverty of the third world megacities. But what are some of the defining features of a third world megacity? Well, these three features that I've picked function sort of like a litmus test. If a megacity has all three simultaneously, then unfortunately it's a third world shithole. First of all, tangled power lines. It's something all third world megacities have. These power lines are just strewn from building to building haphazardly, a future nightmare for any electrician. What am I even talking about, electrician? This whole line has probably been installed and maintained by a single brave brown guy wearing flip-flops. What amazes me is the wastefulness of the third world, as they all leave these almost full looms of wire just hanging out there instead of cutting them to length. Where's the supposed third world resourcefulness we all hear about? The second typical feature is the hell intersection. It's a wider topic of how third worlders all drive like shit, condensed into one singular pandemonium. The constant beeping of the horns is probably responsible for why they all have sub 85 IQ. Another element of the hell intersection is the lack of traffic lights, or a complete disregard of them, and the people just walking in the street on foot completely at random, sometimes with animals. Also, if most of the population of the city gets around on vehicles powered by two-stroke motors, you're definitely in the third world. And lastly, the cityscape itself. The buildings built on top of previously existing structures. Nothing is zoned, nothing is safe. If the building collapses, so be it. The absolute disregard of the common man in these cities is mirrored in the awfulness of the buildings. Exposed raw brick everywhere. Each living quarter, each apartment is like tacked onto the building, looking like freak patchwork. Old colonial buildings are neglected and butchered, while the new ones are unfinished and raw. These third world cities either end up looking like a uniform dystopian nightmare or a complete chaotic cesspit. What makes the third world megacity truly a hellish place is the fact that they are symptomatic of the people inhabiting them being worthless, interchangeable economic units. The supply of workers is endless, forever replenishable, and so the average worker is entirely expendable and paid nothing. People are desensitized to human suffering and to being treated like shit and treating others like shit. In a city that looks like this, you hold no value as an individual. You're just another set of hands to be put to labor. Auchmerophobia is a fear of losing all your worth in a society and being seen as a laborer and not a human. The internet, the free flow of information, has done so much to demystify the third world for the general public. We used to think of the third world as of a land filled with wisdom and spirituality, a simple yet wise lifestyle. But now that we see what sort of people inhabit these mystical lands, we realize that they are like insects living in a large mound. In reality, you just have soccer fans, people that are literal drones that eat slop, drink polluted water, have an IQ of 81, and live in atrocious dirt, and will never ever amount to being anything more than a fertilizer for the land that will grow over these human anthills. When talking about city aesthetics, it's inevitable that you'll encounter at some point Redditors that claim that American suburbs are the worst thing that has ever happened, that they are dystopian, unlivable hellholes. They complain that they're car-dependent and unwalkable, that there is no public transport. These Redditors don't realize that suburbs exist mainly to shelter the working white man from the one particular demographic which started taking over the inner cities in the 20th century. They are car-dependent to shelter its inhabitants from the sort of insect people you meet in public transport. Nobody wants to live around people who are or behave like they are from the third world. Anywhere they go, the living standard gets worse without exception. And even like with the massive western megacities, you cannot compare, for example, the safety and order of Tokyo, where people can fall asleep in the streets and wake up with all their belongings in place and not raped, with somewhere like New Delhi or Dhaka. Suburbia is not perfect, but it is indicative of a time when the white man was to be respected in his servitude to the system because he was needed to grow the economy. Nowadays he can be replaced by 20 Gorillian Indians that will grow the economy for far cheaper, so his ambitions of living in dignified conditions are worthless, and the suburbs are replaced with affordable housing for the migrant laborers. No Westerner would want to live in a place like that. Auchmerophobia is a perfectly rational response to seeing a hellish landscape. So why do so many people support transplanting this biomass from Mumbai, Mexico City, Lima or Cairo into our beloved West? Do these people really think that these third worlders are going to forget a century of being conditioned to build and live in these nightmarishly dysfunctional cities and societies? That they're going to develop a robust sense of cleanliness and order in their ghettos? The reality is, third worlders don't become Westerners. They turn the West into the third world. Case in point, go to any large Western European capital and enjoy the sights and sounds. And listen, I can find sympathy for people from the third world because they do suffer, but I also can find reasons as to why I don't want these people and their ways of life around me. Yeah, their culture and ways of life are a product of poverty. So, do I have a moral obligation to dilute and ruin my culture and my ways of life to help them? So now instead of one dysfunctional society you have two? All of this just to maintain GDP growth and the fake economy. All of this just to get a cheaper, less demanding worker. The reality is, the West is being slowly turned into the third world. Auchmerophobia is real and perfectly rational. When boiled down to its most elementary aspects, it's a fear of being replaced by cheaper workers and having to endure worse pay and worse conditions. It's a fear of your neighborhoods being turned into affordable housing for migrants. It's a fear of becoming part of the biomass of the third world, of becoming disposable and mistreated, of being just an economic unit and nothing else. It's a fear of your voice and interest being irrelevant because you are a part of a small diminishing minority being replaced by third worlders. Simply put, if you take in the third world, you dilute your culture and become the third world. And this fear, it's nothing more than self-preservation.